Hello and welcome to Destiny Digits. This is the Life Path number 22 reading. So Life Path numbers talk about an opportunity that we have in life based on an energy that we are carrying, right? Energies are kind of like costumes, and we all have all the numbers in many different places, but the dominant number is the life path number. As a 22, that means, well, that's a master number, right? 2 plus 2 is 4. So you are every bit of the energies of 4, the builder, the teacher, right? But then, as a 22, the master number means that you've come here to do what a 4 can do, and on a massive scale, right? You're taking that energy, but you're applying it to larger groups of people. You're going to have an audience. You're here to leave a mark. You're here to leave something behind. Okay, so 22s are typically top performers, right? These are people that are resourceful. They are a wealth of knowledge. Achievers, leaders, very logical. Right, so I would suggest that if you are watching this, I didn't say this for 11, but for some reason I'm saying it now, I suggest that you also watch Life Path 4 if you are watching the 22, okay? Alright, so here we go. This is the 5-card spread, almost like a temp check to see where we are on our path to purpose, okay? And so your purpose includes you being this top performer, this big achiever, this leader, this successful builder, creator, okay? So I did have extra cards come out, and I usually save them to the end, but because of these cards, I feel like we should start with them. I feel like they'll set us up a little bit better if we begin with the extra. So to the very far left, the first card we have is Karma. And it says there's nothing from a past life that can't be addressed in the current life. And so in this image, there are two hands that are knitting a mandala, depending on how you say it, right? And the mandala just talks about how like the same experience just grows, right? So it just talks about expansion, right? So there's an energy, you're putting in something, you know, you're knitting this piece, but every time you knit, that's an energy, that's something you're putting in, that's something you're creating. And in the end, you have this masterpiece, but it's really small pulses of energy that you're inputting in something. And so that energy matters in the very beginning, but also at the very end. It's consistent, it's always there, it's a part of the design, it's a part of the framework. And so that's what karma is. What karma is saying is that any energy you put in at any time is fair game to revisit you, good or for bad. Once the energy is out, expect its return. And so on this card it says there's nothing from a past life that can't be addressed in the current life. And so any stitch, any knit that was made at any point in your life, if you are awake and living and listening now, then energy is still present in this life from other experiences that you've had. Now beneath karma, we have 7 of Cups. And so this is a card of choices. This is a card of needing to make a choice, needing to ground yourself, you know, getting out of your head, stop living in this fog, actually making a choice and grounding one of these options and then going forth and working, you know, going forth with whatever cup you choose. But the karma kind of says that 2 things. 1, you're definitely experiencing some type of energy from a past life based on choices that you made. So past life choices have brought us to a position of karma. And so these 7 of Cups, I'm just going to say this, 7 is a number of analysis. And so I feel like this is saying the way that you have chosen to see relationships and love in life are directly connected to the karma of past life. And so I'm going to say that I feel, you know, one of the cards we have here is awakening. And I think that in a certain point of your life, 22, in a certain point of your life, you had to be asleep. You being asleep to the choices that you were making in love, you being asleep to you had to be asleep for a certain amount of time, and that was a result of your karma, right? And so it is when you're asleep that you're almost trying, things cannot be going well, and this most likely is in relationships. This is where you're going to see this when you think about your history of relationships. Those relationships were karmic experience because of your past life choices, and you had to almost endure a certain amount of them in order to pay off this energetic debt. Got me? So the relationships trigger an awakening, but you had to go through a certain amount of them to get to the awakening. The period in which you were asleep is divinely planned. The period in which you awaken is divinely planned, and each of them have to be served for an amount of time, right? Based on past energy that we've inputted to our soul's existence. All right. So hopefully something in there was helpful. So now let's jump into the 5-card spread that tells us where we are in our life path, okay? So where we are, card number 1, first one is loss. Loss. So in the moment that you're in your current life, you definitely can find loss. There are things that you have lost. It says sometimes you learn true offering through loss. You make a passionate invitation to love over. You make a passionate invitation for love to take over and bring her own plan instead of the ego's. And so loss is really about restructuring the ego and showing it that love is the dominant force. Love is at play. Love is the divine plan, not the ego's plan. And beneath the lost card is a 2 of Cups, which refers to union, partnership, soulmate, a connection that is significant, a connection that is put on your path because it's a part of your story. It's necessary, right? It's been written. And so there could have been a significant relationship at some point where now, even if you haven't just lost it, you were at least looking at the loss of a relationship as something different, right? And so maybe the loss of this relationship, at one point you perceived it as you lost love, right? But in reality, you lost your ego's understanding of love. And so when this relationship leaves, you really get to understand the divine plan of what love is. It's not what we've attached ourselves to or what we've determined it to be. It's really about the story that's already written, and how the writing includes us. So beneath the 2 of Cups, it says hope is the conduit for miracles. Okay. So so this is about the heart, definitely matters of the heart, and so I feel like your heart had to endure the shortcomings of your ego. There was a significant relationship that was used in order to open you up, right? And unfortunately, it happened through loss, but it was to teach you something. Right? It was to teach you something. It was to give you a seed. It was so when we have hope is the conduit for miracles. It was to implant something in you. And what was that? It was an energy of hope. So there was an energy that had to be seeded into you, and it could have only have come through this relationship. And this relationship ended in loss. At any point in time, it could have ended in loss. But right now, the space in which you are in, you may be realizing that this relationship was significant. It has not been with you just for this life experience, but also others. And there's a greater story that this relationship really signifies. So what is your task in this moment? What are you supposed to do outside of really understanding what hope is and how it is a generator for miracles? In this moment, your task is to awaken. It literally says, card number 2, awakening. Oh, my Lord, wake me from life as a spiritual sheep. May I hear you through my own instincts and common sense. And so this is where we wake up. So it was a relationship, a significant connection that was here to trigger you to wake up. And all of the sleepiness that you were in, that was a karmic fog as a part of past life choices. But once you're awake, all of a sudden you're like, oh, this thing is on and the cameras are rolling, right? And so your task is to awaken and to realize that you have not been awake and that you were actually asleep. Sometimes that's the hardest part, just realizing that we really didn't know what we thought we knew about this, us, the existence. So beneath the awakening has a death. So isn't that crazy? One card's awakened, but the next card is death. And so this is saying is that this awakening brought death to something. This awakening had to bury something. Death is about transformation. It's about renewal. It's about rebirth. And so this awakening had to almost sacrifice ego. Ego had to go through some sort of death to really understand what this thing is. And this thing, I mean this existence, the story of your soul, this life that's happening through this body, your vessel. Beneath the death card, it says, to begin the practice of allowing, I must get out of the way and let spirit give me direction. And so you woke up to you and to all the things and in all the ways that you may have been in your own way, right? And so that's the part that had to die. So in your own narcolepsy, you were causing trouble in your own life, but you had to for a certain period of time, because that was past life energy that you had to repay. Once it's paid, all of a sudden the significant loss reveals something to you, or you realize that the loss of a connection is worth getting back. You understand what it was for, right? It could have been when you were in this connection at first, you were asleep, you lost it. At some point on the journey, you awaken up to you awaken up, you start looking back, you start reflecting, you're like, oh dear, I understand what this was now, right? And so you had to understand how you were in your way, how you were not seeing what you were supposed to see. And so this is about you really allowing spirit to be the navigation system as opposed to ego. So card number 3 talks about what are your fears. So it says reframe, right? And so if you have pictures hanging on your wall in your house and you're changing the paint of the wall, right? Or you want a different color, maybe you want to change the colors of the frames, or some of the frames are a little damaged and you just want to freshen them up a little bit. And so this reframing, the difficult part for you right now is to put something in a different frame. And what is the something that's hard to put in a different frame? This connection. Under the reframing card is literally the Lovers. So you're waking up, and the hardest part of waking up is taking what you once perceived to be one way and putting it in a new frame, because you now know from consciousness what this really is. And so this is a significant connection. It says the Lovers. And so 6 is a card of balance, equal give and take, right? And so relationships could have been removed from life because there wasn't an equal give and take, and maybe you had to awaken to all the ways in which you are not giving or taking or receiving equally. And in order to bring balance, it really took a mental thing, it took a heart thing. It really is a full body experience, and so that could be the difficult part. Beneath the Lovers cards, it says, when I lean on the faith of the universe, peace becomes real. You know, on the reframe card, the message says, this is happening for me and not to me. This is happening for me and not to me. And so listen, the loss, the pain, the karmic energies that we've endured, right? Like just the death to the old, realizing that that old was not here to beat you, to wound you, to harm you. It was literally grooming you. all of the poor choices that were made were a reflection of past life choices that were made that had to be corrected, but you have to become conscious of them. And so your soul has to allow you to play that energy out again to see if you respond to it differently. And you did. Difficult, yes, but you actually did. And so you have repaid a karmic debt. And this is massive. This is massive. And so your soul has the ability to straddle two lives, right? To build in the present life by breaking down all the things that stopped you from building in an old life, right? And there is a significant relationship that is most likely here with you in this life that was present in the past life, and you are understanding that relationship very differently now, and you're understanding why it had to come to you in the way it came. It was to bring you balance. It was to restore your soul back into a place of give and take. When we're talking about matters of the heart, it put you back online to be a better partner, I think, to be a better companion. Beneath the Lovers card, it literally just says your first partner is universe, God, source, whatever is beyond the veil, whatever you believe is a part of the other side, the other realm. That's where you send your faith. That's where you find your peace. And so when relationships are falling apart, they shouldn't be taking from you. They shouldn't be destroying you, because they are not the source of you. They're reflections of energies that we're working through, and they bring lessons, they bring understanding, but they are not the thing, right? And so no matter what happens in love and in matters of the heart, what is constant is source, right? And that's where we should always find peace. Easier said than done. But that is the current challenge, right? And so what is our strength? Card number 4, it says freedom. I no longer want this fiery ring of resentment to block the good. Release me from its bonds. And so the way we were perceiving relationships and loss and this significant connection really built up a wall around our heart. And any time that we have imprisoned our heart because we have not yet made peace with our past or really understood the purpose or the lesson or the reason for this experience, we're not allowed to grow and move forward. Like our heart is our real GPS system. But when you have locked it up, it can't guide you anywhere. It's imprisoned, right? And it's the resentment, it's the bitterness, it's the unforgiveness of what was. But as soon as you realize what was actually was happening for me and not to me, it's like, oh goodness, And so this awakening allows your heart to finally be free, because you are now able to see something in a different light. My goodness, underneath the freedom card is the 4 of Cups. This is literally the wake up card. This is like, wake up, wake up. What you're focusing on, what you're paying attention to is not the point of the story. There's something bigger, there's something better, there's something greater. So 4 is about foundation and stability and security. Cups is emotion, heart. So this is about bringing security to the heart. And as soon as you allow your heart to make peace with what was, you can wake up to what will be. And then you can fly. You can find freedom in this experience. You no longer have to be tied to old energies and old cycles, old patterns of behavior. Beneath the 4 of Cups, it says joy is the ultimate creator. And so this is, this character is looking out at these cups and they're upset because maybe they thought these cups were the creator. Maybe they thought these relationships, these investments were supposed to bring them the success that they wanted, and they're over it. They're over being bored, not satisfied, unfulfilled. But how long are you going to focus on the fact that you are over it? Right? The over itness, that level of this is really crappy, that if you stay too long, that's what imprisons our heart. That's what puts our heart in these rubber bands that don't allow it to stretch, expand, and guide us in the right direction. And so this is about finding joy even in moments of disappointment, right? And always freeing ourselves from the experience, never living in the experience too long. When the experience naturally ends, make peace with it, allow it to go. Joy is still present tomorrow, right? But you won't know that if you're still stuck on the experience of today or yesterday. And so we need joy in order to create the tomorrow that we really want. But you have to wake up to the possibility that it's here. That is the strength that you have, okay? That is the exact strength that you have. Now, what is the goal? Card number 5 says surrender. Surrender, that is the goal. This experience right now, when we're doing a temp check, as in where you are in your life purpose, you had to lose something in order to awaken. This awakening helped you reframe your mind. By restructuring your mind and your understanding, you finally could free what was blocking you. Once free, you have finally surrendered. That is the temp check. That is the message of the temp check for you. It says sometimes learning to surrender can feel as if you're dying. Literal death card. We talked about parts of us had to die. The ego learns what's hardest, to stop trying to control the whole universe, right? The ego really wants you to be well and to be safe and to have the desires of your heart, but the ego just doesn't have the understanding of how this thing really works. The ego is only assigned to your vessel, your human body. That's it. But think about the vastness of our life. Think about how much the ego is not tapped into. The ego does not have knowledge of. And so sometimes that puts the ego in overdrive. It works harder thinking that it can control. It can see more than it should, right? But at some point, true maturity, true growth, the true awakening is realizing that the ego is a tool for your vessel, but not for the entire existence, right? And so that's where we have to have faith and trust in spirit. That's where we know that our ego actually has a counterpart that it has yet to meet. And so somehow we have to make the connection between the two. Beneath the surrender, it is the 9 of Pentacles. So as soon as the surrender happens, what comes? Self-fulfillment, abundance, prosperity, beauty, right? 9 talks about selflessness, but it talks about giving. And I feel like the energies are finally able to give to you, to bring to you what is due to you in this life. As soon as we surrender to the lessons of the old, to the karma based on choices of old experiences, as soon as we surrender, as soon as we die, we restructure, we learn anew, we can awaken and beautify ourselves in what this life is really here to do for us this time around, right? The universe wants to pour the energy of this 9 of Pentacles all over you. But the ego just didn't know that. It just didn't trust that. And so it was reading these relationships and these connections wrong. These relationships, these were mirrors to show you something that was within that had to just be tweaked, right? That's why these relationships were significant. They were teaching you. Teaching you how to better have a relationship with you, right? And you were asleep to that because for a certain period of time, karma was at play. Beneath the 9 of Pentacles, it says, I find a deeper meaning and personal growth amid the discomfort. Wow. So the discomfort is beautiful, and it's fair play, and it's happening for you and not to you. Imagine that. Even the discomfort, even the dissatisfaction, even the stagnancy, even not being able to create, not all of that was making you the creator that you were about to become. But you had to lack all of that in order to see the ways in which you hadn't yet grown or matured in certain aspects of self. And so this journey has been uncomfortable. If you look behind you, it's not been pretty. But you were stepping into something that is beautiful. Now, let me just say, there's clear progression. And listen, your heart and your money are totally tied together. And so you had to have significant relationships in order for you to reconnect with your heart, free it from what it was bound to. As soon as that takes place, prosperity starts to flow naturally and easily. There's no resistance. You trust. You trust. Your ego has matured. It's aligned. Your ego has awakened to the power and the presence of the universe. God, source. Let's talk about the cards that came out at the bottom of all the decks. To the very far right at the top, we have divine flow. It says, eventually, one sublime desire takes precedence over all others. So think about where we started at the Seven of Cups. Right now, all of those choices are fair game, right? But listen, look at the growth you've made. Eventually, one sublime desire takes precedence over all others to follow the Tao, the divine flow, at all cost. So when we were pulled in all these different directions by all these things that we thought were fulfilling, we had to get to a point where none of that was enough. None of it was sufficient. The only thing was source. The only thing that could fill us was the divine. Not these relationships, not these connections. And losing them really taught us that losing them was making room for the true relationship to happen. And that was with Source. And it is that relationship that brings us to us. Once we are with us, once we are in union with ourselves, then the abundance happens. Divine flow. And can you look what is beneath divine flow at the bottom of the tarot deck? The 10 of Pentacles. That's success, prosperity, wealth, not for this life, but for the next life and the next life. For the generations that you birth now, they will experience this. This is legacy, right? And now you are tapping into legacy. You had to be asleep for a period of time because you were using your energy to pay off karma. But now you are using your energy to build, to leave behind what you came here to do. 22s, this is your moment. Beneath the 10 of Pentacles, it says, I choose love no matter what. No matter what. And so when we're not choosing love, we're choosing fear. We're letting the ego lead us, right? But when we can choose love, even in the discomfort, my goodness, there's personal growth really happens. And so the idea is never to stop growing, to always choose love, to always choose to embrace and accept the experience no matter what. Why? Because the experience is always happening for you and never to you. It's always bringing balance. It's always rectifying the energies in your life in order to bring a flow, in order to bring stability. All right, 22s, you are great. And you are literally stepping into a beautiful season of abundance and harvest. And many are going to be watching and seeing this happen. It's time. Thank you so much.